Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we've really got an important show today because we're going to talk about the role of faith after a death. And we have people talk to us about faith and, grief, loss, how do they deal with it. So we've got some great guests on today, and we're going to kind of knock this topic around.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing what our guests have to say today. We are going to be joined today by Casey Mulligan Walsh, Dana Lerner, and Georgia Levy.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm going to introduce them. Let me
Okay.
start with Casey because she's closest to us. She is the author, Casey Mulligan is the author of the award-winning memoir, The Full Catastrophe, All I Ever Wanted, Everything I Feared. And I love that name.
Mm-hmm.
She has had numerous losses. She was orphaned at 12 years old. Her only sibling died at the age of 27 of a heart attack.
Wow.
And her son Eric died at 20 in a car accident. Casey has written for the New York Times, the Huffington Post, Modern Loss, and numerous other magazines, and has been on a lot of different podcasts and shows.
Awesome.
So welcome, Casey.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Next to Casey is someone that I know well, and she's been on our show before, and our children actually were in the same class. Her son Cooper died when he was 9 years old.
They were in Calhoun in New York, right?
They were. So
I remember.
our kids were classmates together.
Mm-hmm.
So Dana Lerner is her name. Hi, Dana.
Hello.
Dana is a trauma specialist in private practice in New York City. As I said, in 2014, a car crash killed her 9-year-old son, Cooper. I have chills when I talk about this. He was a big, wonderful presence in the school before his death. The kids loved him. He was funny. He was just that kid that everybody knew. So it really rocked the school and my daughter's class.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Since Cooper's death, Dana has become a leading advocate for traffic safety and victims' rights. She co-founded Families for Safe Streets, a nationwide organization dedicated to raising awareness about rising traffic violence in the United States. Dana is also founder of Cooper Stocks Way, a nonprofit that raises money for children in need. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you. Nice to be
Great
back.
to see you.
Next to Dana is Georgia Levy.
Yes.
Am I saying your last name right?
Yeah, Levy.
Georgia Levy, thank you. Georgia is a clinical program director at Our House Grief Support Center in New York City.
Oh, I've got to talk about Our House. I know about it from L.A. Frida Wasserman was amazing, and you're having Steve Parker come and stay at your house tonight, and his wife Stacy was very involved
Yes.
in Our House for many years. They loved the L.A. It was really wonderful. So
Yes.
it's coming to New York.
Coincidentally, yes, my friends were very involved in Our House in LA, and we are really excited that you are coming to New York City because, as Dana was saying before the show, we've never had anything like this here, and it's surprising that we haven't.
Yeah.
This is a big city. So we're so excited that you're going to start in Our House here.
And Our House is for Dana. Tell us who it's for.
Dana
I
or
mean,
Georgia?
Georgia. Sorry,
Yeah, so our
Georgia.
house.
Tell us who it's for.
Yeah, it's for children from 5 years old up until the rest of adulthood. So we have a family support program that's going to be for children 5 to 18 and their caregivers or surviving parents. And then we have an adult program as well, and those services are for age and relationship specific. And then we're also going to do a school-based program, and we'll have on-site grief response as well.
Wow,
I love this.
incredible Manhattan.
When Georgia was 16, one of her best friends, Chase, died in a car accident with a drunk driver. She is a licensed social worker with over a decade of experience in trauma-informed care, working with people with various forms of loss. So welcome, Georgia.
Thank you.
Well,
Happy to be
ladies,
here.
thank you so much for being on the show. You know, one of the things that the research shows, and I've worked in the field of grief and loss for probably 45 years, is that people who have some kind of a faith or belief system seem to do a little better in the grieving process. Now, it did not even seem to. It shows that they do have less maybe depression or whatever. And I'm not sure, Heidi and I were talking about it before the show, I'm not sure what that's all about. Is it about community, or is it really the faith? Or when you talk about faith and religion, it could be, is it organized religion where you go to church every Sunday, or is it a faith that you have, or have you, when we work with the organization in Arizona, Helping Parents Heal, they talk a lot about experiences with afterlife experiences and people appearing and that kind of faith. So I wondered what
it might
yeah.
just be spirituality. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily need to be organized religion.
Yeah.
It can be just a belief, a spiritual belief, etc., about where people are after they die, like your signs, dreams, connections, those kind of things.
Yeah, but it kind of shows that it can be helpful. And I wondered if you, Georgia, you were saying, oh, no, I think it was you that were
Casey?
saying, Casey, when we were reading about it, you were saying that faith played a role for you.
Definitely. So, my parents were ill and dying on and off throughout my childhood, and I look back now, I'm shocked at how young I was, but we moved a lot, and wherever we moved, I made sure I connected to a family who picked me up and took me to church. I just had this, this intrinsic desire to do that. And then when my mother died, that was my second parent who died, I was sent to live with my father's relatives who were Irish Catholic, so I was Catholic for a while. And then in my adult life, a small Protestant church was a big part of our lives. That was all very important to me. But in the years before my son died, our family was going through a lot of difficulties. We had a very hostile divorce, and I had no family. My husband's family had become my own, but I lost them, in that divorce. And I really turned toward a different sort of spirituality, not an instead of, but kind of an add-on to the faith that I'd always had. And so I feel as if, my story isn't that my son died and then here's how I got through it. It's more that I developed this deeper spirituality in the 2 years leading up to his death, so that the day he died, I had what I needed. And it was a little more East meets West, I think, that we're all connected, whether we're in the same place physically or not, that we're not separate, that we move around in the world feeling like we're in our little silos, but when there's tragedy, those walls come down and you see how connected we really all are.
In your faith, yeah.
And-
How about you, Dana? What about your?
I think that for me, it's a lot of searching, because I was not a religious person. I didn't have any faith that I sort of adhered to. But I think what started happening and what helped me the most is just making contact with Cooper and
Now, were you raised Jewish?
Yeah. But didn't practice Judaism. I really I would say I'm an agnostic, if anything, or actually no. Now at this point, I would say I believe in Buddhism. I think Buddhism has been something that's been very, very helpful. This idea of everyone suffering, and I think as you were saying, it's like when you realize you're a part of something bigger, it can be very, very helpful. You feel less alone. You feel less alienated. And for myself, I've had a lot of experiences where I feel very close to Cooper, and where I've talked to him, and so that it's like there just feels like there's just more out there, and that's something I
So
hold
you
on
felt
to a lot.
connected to him.
Oh yeah, no, it happens relatively often.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also, when I'm having a very bad day, I really try to access him and have him talk to me about, okay, how can, you shouldn't be upset, Mom. You should be happy. Try to be happy. And he comes to me in that way, and that's hugely important for me, and I feel very fortunate about that.
And how about you, Georgia?
I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic school for my first 9 years of education, and I was actually kind of going through a, questioning phase where I was rejecting organized religion at the time when Chase died. And that was really my first big experience with close death. I'd had a few grandparents died. Both my mom's parents had died, but my dad's his parents had died before I was born. But they didn't live near us, so it wasn't as impactful. But this was really, it shook me to my core, and it actually encouraged, exploration of what is faith, what is afterlife, who am I, what is, humanity, and what is beyond. And you know, I really redefined my own perceptions of what it means to be a living, breathing person and what happens afterward. And I've had some, you know, unique experiences where I have experienced Chase come to me in various ways. And, you know, my mom still says that when I come home, like things will move and shift, and she's like, he's playing with you, you know, he's, you know, kind of teasing and whatnot. And I, you know, I've definitely had experiences where I'm like, I certainly have a guardian angel.
So you're feeling that. Well, Heidi, I remember when you were in college, you had a friend who brother committed suicide or died by suicide, and his father was a nuclear scientist at with the where is it they do the atom bomb
In New Mexico.
yeah, in Albuquerque area.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, and he said to you, "I wished that I wasn't an agnostic."
He said, I wish I had a belief that my twin brother was someplace other than 6 feet under.
Yeah.
He's my twin, and I don't believe that he is any place but in the ground. And he said, what do you believe? And I said, well, for me, it was important that I believed that my brother was in a better place, or a nice place, or a good place. Maybe not necessarily better, but something else, because it would have been too hard for me to make sense of a 17-year-old brother dying if I just thought that he was no longer. The spirit is somewhere.
That's right.
I believe it's around us. I mean, I believe it's here. I believe in signs, dreams, and connections, like we've talked about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, signs are interesting. Well, when Scott died, your brother, which was 42 years ago or something, I was Mormon at the time. I'm a Mormon. I'm, you know, generations of Mormons, and Mormons have very set beliefs about how everything's going to be and how, you know. And nobody could tell me why he died.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the interesting thing about organized religion.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Jewish, whatever. Nobody can tell you why
Right.
they died.
Right.
Right.
You know, they can make up, you know, God needed another angel or whatever, but nobody can give you
The
any
answer.
rationale.
Right.
Yeah.
And I found that very difficult. And when I asked people, but I had a dream, and my dream was Scott was pitching a ball to himself because he was a baseball player. And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "I am." And I didn't know what that meant for many, many years. Literally, I said to my bishop, I had this dream, and he appeared and said, "I am." What does that mean? And he's like, clueless. So, so if you look at the Buddhism, that fits much more in the
does.
Buddha.
Yeah.
I am the I
Yes.
am.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know,
That's right.
but so that was kind of interesting. But for people who are watching this show, if you've had a death or listening to it, it shakes your world. I don't care what religion or what belief or what faith. Did any of you question your faith? I certainly did at that time.
Well, for me, I think if I'd been deeply ensconced in the more traditional religion, I might have. But I said East meets West, but definitely more Buddhist. I feel like kind of my belief system is like a little Buddhist Christianity. But because I had that very strong belief and feeling that we're all connected now, it doesn't matter if they're here in body. I feel Eric with me all the time. And so that sort of spirituality gave me a lot of comfort. So I never did question that. But having lost my family young, I think I never was one to ask why. You just kind of do what you're doing. You know, you figure out how to get to the next place or what it has to teach you, which is kind of Pema Chodron, right? That all life is uncertainty and change. And most of my life, I would say that I worked really hard to make things turn out the way I wanted to. And thank goodness, by the time Eric died, I kind of started to slough that off and be more accepting of I say that I stopped praying for a particular outcome and began to pray for the strength to manage whatever comes, to live through whatever comes. So I'm so grateful that's where I was when he died, because if it had been even a couple of years earlier, I think I would have had a very different reaction. I think that was a real gift. Yeah, but I do feel Eric with me, all around me, and I see signs, and he's funny, he's got a sense of humor.
Some people don't like to see signs.
I love them.
I remember I was talking to
Yeah.
this friend of ours after his wife died, and I said, he was a college professor at the University of Utah. I said, Jim, have you seen any signs from Jerry? And he's like, no, they don't exist. There's nothing about,
Well,
signs.
they don't. Some people don't believe
Some
it.
people
don't
They
believe
think
it.
that's
Yeah.
that's BS.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the question that for that comes also is, how do you deal with it in the home when you believe that you're seeing signs in your spouse or people think you're, dada.
Yeah.
Any
So
months?
Dana, how about you?
Well, I think what happened for me is that I kind of went to my profession, as a therapist, as a trauma therapist, and that was the thing that for some reason, in the midst of just feeling like, completely like a bomb dropped on my life and just completely disoriented and everything, I was able to still work. But what I noticed for me was that when Cooper died, and he was in an emergency room, and I looked at him and I said to myself, he's never going to leave me. Like, it was a very profound moment. I didn't understand it until years later, but I realized that the bond and the attachment will always exist. It will never go. It's biologically impossible. It just doesn't work like that. Human beings attach. That's how we live. That's how we function.
Do you know that you actually, if you're a mother, you actually have cells
Yes.
from your
Yes,
child
that's
in your
the
body?
contrary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My-
You
my
still,
brother.
right,
Yes.
right. You still have. I probably said that word
No,
completely
but
wrong.
but no, it
anyway,
doesn't matter.
yeah.
It's true, though. We all know
However,
that.
Yeah,
as
We
Heidi
do.
likes
Yeah.
to tell me, I know what you're thinking.
Oh, that you can still be attached even if you don't give birth to your child.
Of course.
Of course.
And you all know that. I have an
Yeah.
adopted child, as Dana knows, and feel very attached to her. Of
course.
And she was born in my heart.
Right.
That's
yes,
right.
That's right.
But it is also pretty cool especially when you've had a loss, that your child,
Yes.
if it's your biological, that somehow their DNA is
Yeah.
inside of you.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Georgia?
Yeah, I think I kind of went into a questioning of just faith in general, but looking at just science, like turning to science and looking for some sort of a concrete answer as to what is life after death, or does it exist? And I got really into physics and astronomy, and just looking at what is energy, what is a human. And I just kept coming back to, E equals MC squared. Energy is not created or destroyed, it only changes form. And that is something that I've just held on to, is that there is a part of us that persists. And maybe it exists in the people who love us, maybe it exists in other, universes and parallel dimensions and wherever it might be, but it still exists. Like, we are never not.
Yeah, I guess one thing for me that happened when Scott died, especially my brother, was that I was like, why me? And if there's a just God, how could this happen? Because you hear all these miracles that people say, oh, God must have saved my child, they lived, or my brother. It's like, well, why didn't he save my brother and my cousin, because they died together? So I think for a little bit I felt pissed off, basically,
course.
to be honest.
Of course.
Right.
Cheated.
Yes. Like, wait, why? Why didn't a miracle happen here?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And, we're talking about child loss now, but spouse loss, sometimes people who have had children die have the feeling, the world says this is the most important thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is have a child die. And we say the worst, as Elizabeth DeVita Rayburn, our good friend, says, the worst thing that can happen is the death that you've had.
That's right.
The
Yeah.
one that's knocked you down on the ground. And, So I think it's important for people listening to this, if you've had a spouse loss, a partner loss. For some people, it's an animal loss. I hope that you'll listen to this faith kinds of thoughts. So I want to talk about rituals for a minute, because I think that's part of what organized religion brings us.
That and community.
Our rituals and community. But, the rituals, well, even funeral homes have rituals.
Yeah.
And the rituals are changing now with, there's a lot more different changes, like people are having life celebrations.
Celebrations of life.
And they're not doing it when the person dies. They're waiting. And COVID really made it that start of happen, this celebration of life, and we'll wait. And wow, I get concerned a little bit about that, because I want to cry. I remember standing by Scott's coffin and people coming by, and I didn't think I could cry anymore, and then they'd come up and cry with me, and I could cry some more.
Yeah.
There's this huge energy, field of grief and sorrow, and you just don't get that kind of energy. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, I think in our country we don't know how to mourn. I mean, there's grieving and there's mourning, and I think of mourning as these actual, like Shiva in the Jewish religion, or the just the rituals that we go through. And in other countries, I think they're much more set and they're extended, and it's not like it was last month, so it's over. So I think those things are really, really important. I think things have changed too, because it's the direction we're going in, is that fewer people are having organized religion, funerals, and the things that we always kind of. I've been to a lot of death celebrations lately, where they'll have calling hours and then a service right in the funeral home, and it may be very outside what we used to expect. It could be music and people reading and talking.
There might be some pinwheels and balloons.
Yes. But I do think it's important to be able to have that mourning too. And I don't, we all have the history that we have from our own families. My parents, I was young when they died. There was not an open casket. I don't like open caskets. But
I love open caskets.
Right, and everybody do what's right.
I want to say goodbye to that person.
So you do what's right for you, but I respected the fact that there were people that needed to see him.
Yeah.
So like between the calling hours, we had a period of time if people wanted to come
if they
in
wanted
and
to
see him.
them.
But I didn't want to stand in a room looking at my son's body for
and
hours. Other people do.
I love that you thought about other people too, and said, I'm going to give them the opportunity if they
That's
want to
nice.
do that.
Right.
And I don't want to do that.
Right.
And I don't need to do that.
Right. I mean, I went in during that
Yeah.
hour, but I just didn't want it to be hours of him, But I think there's no wrong way.
Yeah.
There's no right way. There's no wrong
Well,
way.
one of
It's
the
way
things
that's right
that
for you.
the research that I've read about seeing the body is this: it is helpful in the first early, because
Yes.
seeing is believing.
Yes.
But 6 months down the road, it doesn't seem to be that,
Right.
or whatever down the road,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Right.
seem to be as important
No, it
as
doesn't.
it
It
was
doesn't matter
during the
Yeah.
the early time.
We
I
found
don't
that
know.
out with the 9/11 families that we worked with. Most of them didn't have any remains. And early on, it was hard because, you think, well, what if someone kidnapped someone? What if they
Yeah.
lost their memory? All these things, they're
Right.
not really dead. And I went down that with my brother, even in a car accident. But later on, we found that it didn't make a difference, because at the end of the day, they're not coming back physically.
Yeah.
So
And Dana, do you want to say anything about rituals?
Well, it's really interesting. I find that, during the times of the year where I am suffering the most, which is before my son's birthday, before, during, and after, and before, during, and after I hate the word anniversary, but the day that he died. And I find myself longing for people to show up and just sit with me, as they did right after he died. So I feel like if only people, and I'm very fortunate and I have a lot of friends, but to me, I wish that people would understand that, because, people think time heals and all this stuff, and I don't agree that time is healing my wound of the loss of my son. and that people should be allowed to continue to mourn and do whatever they need to do. So I find myself sort of thinking, God, it would be really nice if people just showed up on those anniversaries. But so I guess I kind of look for that in a sense.
You could probably ask some people to show
Yes,
up.
yes, I do, and I do. I always have a plan of what I'm going to do
Good.
on those days.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
How about you, Georgia?
Yeah, I think as you shared, rituals extend beyond the general cultural memorial funeral, and it can go for the rest of the person's life. One ritual that I observe is on the anniversary of Chase's death and also on his birthday, I always send his mom flowers. It's been
So
19
nice.
years, but I know that pain exists and that love will, endure. And I want her to know that I still honor and
That is
recognize her
beautiful.
son.
What
Yeah.
that is
I love that. What a gift.
Yeah,
That's
that's
so
really nice. When it was 40 years, the internet is fascinating because people have contacted me. I got a message. It's been 40 years today. I never forget Scott. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this? He sent a picture. I said, who are? Because it's 40 years later. I said, is that you, John?
Yeah. Well,
And now we're going to connect up. He's in Arizona and have dinner. So, it's
that's
really a lot of fun. Well, if you could give one last piece of advice for somebody who's recently had a loss and regarding their spirituality, what would it be? Any of the three of you?
I would say take the time to define what it means to you and kind of leave everyone else's prescriptions at the door and just what makes sense to you, what brings you peace and love or, helps you hold that person dear.
Great. How about you, Dana?
I agree. I think that it's important to think about what you need and feel okay asking for things or feel okay not asking for things and doing whatever you need to do
How
to
about
manage.
you, Tracy?
I think it's really important for people to be okay with not knowing,
I
with
love it.
not knowing what they believe, not feeling like they have to have an answer to this, but just staying open. I think
love
it's
it.
really important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are great advice. And you guys have been a great panel, and I appreciate it. And good luck to everybody out there with this grief and loss. And, you're an individual. And I always like to say, give yourself a hall pass and
Right.
say no.
yeah.
So we want to
And-
thank everybody for watching the show today. And we always want to remind you, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own. And God bless.